Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Politics at the workplace do exist. Your choice is whether or not to get involved with it, ethically, of course, or whether you want to simply ignore the politics at work and inevitably get blindsided. When it comes to the workplace, influence can be a big thing. So influence networks can be one example of politics at the workplace. Those people who have influence over what happens and who maybe it happens to can be seen as people with quite a bit of power. Competition for resources is another example of the politics that many may deal with at work. It's not uncommon for resources to be scarce or limited to some capacity. Being able to get the resources that you need or having a say in who gets whatever resources are available can be quite powerful. And of course, narrative control. That can be a big one. Having a say over the narrative that is part of the workplace can be quite influential and desired by a number of people. And as is the case with politics in general, at the workplace we can see politics that are healthy and generally beneficial, or politics that are detrimental or even toxic. Things such as transparency, reciprocity, and fairness, those are good kinds of politics, no matter where you are, at the workplace or not. On the other hand, things such as manipulation or exclusion of others tend to be toxic in nature. In order to better understand politics at the workplace and how power actually flows, we have to consider some key influences that are part of that ever important equation. First and foremost, think about gatekeepers. Gatekeepers tend to have tremendous power in terms of information and how it flows. Gatekeepers can decide in many instances if something happens or not, if information gets through or not, if someone is heard or not. So gatekeepers can have tremendous power and therefore play an important role in workplace politics. The other thing to consider are people like sponsors or informal leaders, people who may not necessarily have leadership titles or management titles, but do have some kind of leadership power in an informal capacity. These kinds of informal leaders, just like sponsors, do play an important role in office politics. They may have quite a bit of influence regarding all kinds of things pertaining to the organization, from mere influence to actual decision-making. Whether they're calling the shots directly or indirectly, they may have more power than many realize. Another thing to consider when it comes to workplace politics are meeting dynamics. Who leads a meeting? Who calls the shots? Who is allowed to speak and who is silenced in one way or another? A meeting can be quite revealing in terms of the kinds of patterns that are reflective of workplace politics. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, when it comes to workplace politics, they can take one of two forms, either the types of politics that are beneficial or the types of politics that are detrimental or toxic. Your decision, your choice, whether you are an individual employee or someone who is in charge or in some management or leadership position, your choice is whether or not you want to get involved and how you want to get involved. If you choose not to get involved, you may eventually be blindsided by workplace politics. But if you do choose to be involved, your choice is to either do it in an ethical way or one that is not so ethical. My recommendation is to be ethical, always, whether we're talking about workplace politics or anything else. So what does an ethical influence playbook actually look like? What kind of things do we need to take into consideration? If you want to have influence, if you want to have a say, if you want to make a difference, and again, let's hope it's for the good of those around you and the organization in general, the first thing you need to figure out is who the stakeholders are. We can call this stakeholder mapping. So your job is to understand who cares about what and why. If you want to engage in workplace politics, that's a good starting point. Understanding who the players are and why they are where they are. It's critical that you build your credibility. If you want to have any kind of power or influence, you have to be credible. Your credibility consists of reliability, clarity, and calmness in any situation. You have to be stable and steady as an individual, someone who can handle situations with the same kind of calmness no matter what the situation is. Being someone who is quick to react and doesn't appear to have much self-control cannot be taken seriously, especially long-term. Their brand of influence is not the kind that we're looking for here. Align whatever proposals you present with shared goals. Be someone who is very obviously interested in the success and well-being of the team and the organization as a whole. Being able to influence solely for your own gains does not reflect ethical politics at the office. It's also beneficial to go into any situation, anything that you're trying to influence, with a pre-prepared plan, a pre-written decision, if you will. That's not to say your way is the only way or is the way that things will happen. But if you are proposing something, if you are bringing an issue or a problem to the table, for example, come prepared with at least some rough draft of a solution or of an idea that could be implemented to improve the situation, to improve the team, to improve the organization, whatever the case may be. When it comes to successful office politics, the type of politics that are beneficial means being prepared. Being able to show others that you have thought things through, that you are not solely pointing out issues, but rather thinking about viable, beneficial solutions. Another thing that is critical when it comes to the ethical influence playbook is integrity. Protect integrity at all costs. Document things so that things can be readily available to reference at a later time. Eliminate guessing. When you document things, there's no reason to speculate, guess, or try to remember. Make sure that you don't engage in things that are beneath you. Don't gossip. Don't blame people or point fingers or drag people into things that have nothing to do with them. Integrity is key, and that includes your integrity, but also the integrity of the team and of the organization. If you are in a leadership role or a management role, you have an extra responsibility. Not only should you be behaving and conducting yourself in a way that promotes the right kind of office politics, but you also have to create the kind of environment that allows others to engage in the right kind of office politics, the office politics that benefit other people, that benefit the organization. Stay away from things that are detrimental and toxic. Reduce toxic politics with clarity. Leave no room for guessing or speculation or gossip. Stick to fairness and fair processes, and be consistent with your decision making. Be as transparent as possible. The bottom line is that office politics are real. Ideally, they are the kinds of office politics that benefit people, teams as a whole, the organization as a whole, rather than the kinds of politics that are toxic and detrimental. Everyone has a choice of whether or not to get involved, but to ignore office politics often turns into something that we didn't expect and we don't enjoy. So my recommendation is to be engaged to whatever degree you feel comfortable. If you want to have some level of influence, then by all means, consider the ethical influence playbook that I presented for you. If you want to be less involved, then at the very least, make sure that you are aware of what is going on around you and who is engaging and in what type of politics. That will allow you to navigate the office politics with much more ease and confidence. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Office politics are inevitable. Your choice, your decision is to either get engaged or get blindsided. And by getting engaged, I suggest that you do so in an ethical way. Ethical office politics involve in the kinds of behaviors that benefit the workforce, that benefit teams, and essentially that benefit the organization as a whole. The idea is to stay away from things that are toxic or detrimental. Transparency, reciprocity, and fairness beat out things like manipulation or exclusion. Remember that gatekeepers or informal leaders or even meeting dynamics can control the flow of information and the flow of power. And when it comes to ethical influence, the playbook involves things such as stakeholder mapping, building credibility, and protecting integrity. If you are in a management or a leadership position in an official capacity, you have the extra responsibility of creating the kind of environment that will promote positive politics at the workplace. Remember to lead with integrity and clarity. Be fair and remain consistent with your decision making. As this week unfolds, I encourage you to consider the politics at your workplace. Are you someone who gets involved, or do you stay blissfully ignorant of the whole thing? Keep in mind that choosing to ignore workplace politics can backfire and blindside you one day. Whether you wish to become an active influencer or not, being aware of what's going on around you is a good idea. It also pays off to conduct yourself in ways that reflect credibility, reliability, and transparency. Your integrity can go a long way. And if you want to change how things are done at work, a good way to start is to get engaged in workplace politics in a positive, ethical way. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio version only, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of the podcast. Once you're there, check out some of the other videos. They focus on stress management. Stress Free with Dr. G is found on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.